Hello, everyone. If you've been following my podcast, you may have noticed that I've gone quiet in the last month and without explanation. And that's because I actually had not intended to be away. I had not intended to take a break from the podcast. There was supposed to have been 2 episodes that would have dropped in this last month that I have been silent. And well, the thing was, it was not planned. And so that's why I did not give you a heads up. So this recording is really kind of like an update and a bit of a sharing explanation about what's happening, because it's one of those like it's happening in real time, real life kind of sharing. So I'm actually in the midst of recording a season around the topic of deconstruction, right? And each episode was meant to kind of look at a different facet of deconstruction. And this is a very rich subject, really, for me. Those of you who have been following the episodes, you would know, rich and also deep. It's been taking quite a bit from me to share the things I've been sharing on the various episodes. And at the same time, the world has gotten heavier with everything that's happening in the world right now, the wars, the political situation. And then we had Lent and Holy Week. That Holy Week was almost exactly a month ago. And I, as a recovering trauma survivor, both complex trauma survivor and also religious and spiritual trauma survivor, I've been feeling the growing heaviness in my body and my nervous system over these last few months. And I've been able to cope. At least I felt like I was coping. I haven't had any huge, major physical symptoms or anything. But things seem to have come to a head like at Holy Week. And during Holy Week, I sent out kind of like almost consecutively 4 different newsletter sharings. So although 3 out of the 4 of them were kind of like republishing old blog pieces that I'd written in the past 2-3 years, the thing is, each of those pieces, in the years that I had written them, I had fallen sick after I wrote that piece and posted it on my blog. And this year, I just I felt like I could just republish them in my newsletter, just because it's for a different audience, and I also wanted a place where I could record and keep track of like my own journey. So I resent out, right, these pieces on like how I always felt numb on Good Friday, or the realization of how I always felt numb on Good Friday and why that was. I think there was a piece, let me see, about a letter that was addressed to my fellow complex trauma survivors who struggle with Holy Week. And then there was a piece that I sent out on Holy Saturday titled "Before You Ask Catholics to Come Home for Easter." That also was kind of like written as something I wished that people would consider before they just try to get Catholics who've been away from Mass to come back to the church on Easter. And then on Easter Sunday itself, I wrote a brand new reflection about Easter hope for the spiritually traumatized. And what I didn't realize was just how much all of that kind of like took out of me. And quite literally, after that last written piece on Easter hope for the spiritually traumatized went out, I just felt like I have no more words. Like I have no more words to kind of like say, to put to these deeper experiences, and I feel like I needed a break. So it hasn't been like totally easy for me to make that decision kind of like on the fly. I usually can. I've done so in the past. When inspiration kind of like comes, right? I'm able to record and edit and put out a podcast episode within, if I need to, within a span of a day. And so I've learned, when I feel like that wall that I'm not able to do it, even though I have an idea about the topic and what it is I want to say, I have a good sense now when it's not going to happen. And so I just been waiting for that ability to come back, for me to know that it's time that I can put words again to my experiences and record another episode. And it just hasn't happened. It just hasn't happened. It's been that sense of like, I have no more words right now. There's a lot that's going on. There's a lot that continues to go on. In fact, these last few weeks, it feels like I am undergoing another deeper shift. And whenever I'm going through these kind of seasons, I don't necessarily see them coming. Sometimes I have a little bit of a heads up that I'm entering into another season of maybe deeper healing or change. But this time around, I have to say, I really didn't see it coming. I didn't feel it coming. It was very sudden. And all I know is that right now, I have to withdraw again into a bit more silence. So the world has been very noisy, and everybody else seems to have been amping up their production and their publication, whether it's in written form, on social media, or podcasts. And I have been consuming, like other people's content. And during this period of time, I've also just consciously had to stop consuming a lot of stuff. I've unsubscribed from a lot of Substack newsletters and stopped listening to new podcast episodes that I usually follow. It's just a season of recalibrating. So this is, in the midst of living out what I often talk about the interior integration journey, right? The actual praxis of listening to our bodies, following that discernment. And even when it's hard, I have to say the hard part for me always is, like, when I have to take a break, is that sense of not being responsible. In this case, to people who are following my podcast, like, I didn't give an explanation, or I didn't tell you guys that I was going to go on a break, and I went on a break. And when I was learning about podcasting, that was one of the first things that I was told, or I was reading, like, you have to kind of like update people, keep people updated, right? So that's why I'm back today after a month to just share this kind of update, to let you know where things are, because I don't know yet. I mean, when it comes back, if it comes back, when it comes back, it probably would be just as sudden as when I just felt like right now I can't anymore. I don't have anything to say right now, right? I guess when seasons change, and me living out this reality of that cycle of, I guess I want to say that cycle of seasonal change in the interior journey, which is pretty similar in some sense, I think, to the cycles of seasonal change in nature. It's something I've learned that I'm not meant to override, and I'm meant to lean into and respect and honor and trust that fruitfulness, like genuine fruitfulness, comes from honoring the cycles, the change, the rhythms that God has put in place and invites me into. So I've also noticed, actually, that this season's podcast, maybe because of the topic is being a little heavier, has also been a little slower in like listeners have been a little slower in catching up with the episodes. So while it was not planned, what I've noticed in the last month while I have not been putting out any new episodes is that I think people are catching up with what I've already put out earlier. So I hope that continues to happen, that maybe my time away a little earlier than planned. Usually I take a break towards the middle of the year, so I was going to take a break after a couple more episodes, but maybe that break came earlier than expected and not when I expected. I had intended to talk about at least do two more episodes on deconstruction. One was intended to be kind of like deconstruction after religious trauma, and another one was on deconstruction in the context of the stages of faith, right? Deconstruction is kind of like the doorway from the first half of life where faith, was has a particular kind of experience where it was more closed and structured and tidy into the second half of life where really things are a lot more open, paradoxical, just undefined, deeper into mystery, and the role that deconstruction plays, or how that process of going from the first half of life into the second half of life is itself deconstruction. So I, at this point, honestly do not know if I will return and do these two episodes that I intended initially. But I do know, I'm very confident that if I'm meant to, it will happen. And if not, then, maybe they're not needed at this time for anyone, not for me anyway. And finally, I just want to say, I know I'm also behind in responding to comments on my YouTube channel. So if you have left a comment and I haven't responded and you catch this episode, just know that I'll get around to it. But that's just one of those things that I just really have not been able to do, because every time I want to maybe like read the comments and respond, again, I kind of feel like I have no words right now that I'm meant to say. There's nothing good that I can kind of like put out. So I thank you for your patience, and thank you for continuing to to support me and follow my content. I really welcome your feedback, whether it's by email, whether it's on content on my comments. Just keep me in prayer, and I continue to keep you in prayer and the rest of the world as well. And well, I guess we'll find out together when I'll be back again for more episodes of Becoming Me. So until then, I wish you well in your own interior integration journey. Happy becoming!